episode of Booked, a place to explore the realms of creativity. Today's guest is John Jacob Dawson, author of Past Crimes. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm good, how are you?
I am really good. Thank you so much for coming back. I'm going to admit my blunder. The previous recording that we had of this was not representative of how great you are. So I just want to make sure, audio-wise, I mean, because that was my fault. That was totally on me. So I'm glad that we had the opportunity to do this. So if you're listening and you're thinking, God, the audio is fantastic, it's because this was very recently recorded, since I have learned many, many lessons. Because there are some eagle-eyed listeners, eagle-eared listeners out there.
Probably eagle-eared, yeah.
Eagle-eared, yeah. Grant, if you're listening to this, hopefully the audio is to your liking this time. So, welcome. Well, welcome back, but welcome. If you could give our listeners a little bit of an overview of who you are and what to expect from your book.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. I was going to say the audio might be better, but the person it probably isn't. So I'm John Jacob Dawson. My book is Past Crimes. It's my only one currently out at the moment. And what to expect from Past Crimes? I suppose it's like a sci-fi thriller, crimey to a degree. So my main character, Michael, he witnesses his parents die at a very young age, and they mean the world to him, and he has nobody else. Police can't solve the crime back in the 70s when it's set. So he kind of dedicates his life to inventing time travel. And let's just say he goes on a journey that, you know, takes him into some very dark places. But yeah, it's, I suppose, a bit of fun. It's not too serious. It's quite easy to read. If you think time travel might be something that isn't your thing, this version of time travel isn't anything I think anybody's ever really done before. And it's very light on that. More of a kind of a reason for why Michael does things rather than the whole plot of the story.
Yeah.
And it's not very technical. I'll admit that. So if you're looking for a really technical book, it's not mine. If you're looking for something easy to read where you can follow Michael's journey through grief, through this process of, you know, desperation and obsession to get justice for the people, the only two people he ever loved, you know, read that book.
Read it. Read Past Crimes. Interview over. No, I'm kidding.
That's it. There you go.
No, it is delicately sci-fi. Like,
Yeah.
there's an element of it, but I wouldn't say that was the predominant plot of the book. No. So, like, I personally, I love sci-fi movies. I was swinging my chair like a kid then. I love sci-fi movies.
That's all I've been doing.
Oh, sorry?
That's all I've been doing.
Yeah, it's a bit soothing, isn't it?
Yeah, nice.
A bit funky. Oh gosh. So yeah, I love sci-fi movies. I love sci-fi shows. I find science fiction books hard to read because there's always this. I've said this in almost every single episode because I speak to so many like fantasy sci-fi authors, but I find them really hard to get my teeth into because I find technical descriptions of things or things that I'm not familiar with in terms of like terminology, technologies, things like that. It takes me out of the fantasy of it. Of the story, and I think, oh my god, I've got to understand something new. I have to learn things and remember them for the plot of the book. I find that challenging. I see why people love them, and I'm not dogging on them. It's just me and my weird brain. However, this has elements of sci-fi in it that make it interesting and exciting, and take it out of the real world, but it is still based around a lot of real world problems. As I said to you before, reading the beginning of it really reminded me of Batman. Really reminded me of Batman. I mean, he's not the first kid to have his parents killed in front of him. But it gave me those like sad, Gotham-y sort of dark vibes. And it was really interesting. And I thought that your insertion of the fantastical within this sort of real world story was really fun. And I think it was really well done. And I really enjoyed the book. So
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Go read it.
Yeah. Go read it. It is interesting you say, yeah, I've heard a lot of people say the comparisons to Batman, and I'll be honest, it absolutely wasn't something I was thinking of doing
Hmm.
when I was writing this. My, I mean, but now you look back on it. Now I look back on it, I kind of absolutely can see that if Batman was just a standard kid, no money, nothing, no background, but was quite a clever kid and had this happen to him, would he go down a different path,
Mm.
perhaps, or try different avenues to get justice in his own way again? So yeah, I do see the comparisons at the start, and people have mentioned that, but it absolutely wasn't an intentional thing. I wish it kind of was in a way, because it could have been a darker take on, like, what if Batman did the or wrong thing for his own right reasons, perhaps. But yeah, um, yeah, it's just an interesting take, not something that I intentionally did.
I think that happens though because we are inspired by uh, real life events and things that we've seen, things that we've experienced, and we're always going to get some sort of subconscious influence from somewhere. And you might not have even gotten a subconscious influence from Batman, but it's just because we're familiar with that thing
Yeah.
that is really, really famous that people make those comparisons. But Batman was really good, so that's a compliment in my opinion.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I've said it wasn't intentional, possibly subconsciously it was. I mean, he is my favourite superhero of all time. So, and I've watched all the movies, read loads of comics, so possibly, but more importantly, what I was trying to get at was there has to be a thing, a MacGuffin, I suppose, anything that, and that is like the time travel element of it, realizing time travel exists, that he's created it for this specific reason, like how dangerous it could be in the wrong hands, how good it could be in the right hands, should it even exist. But the human element of that story, really, the fact that he's witnessed something so horrific as a child, something no child should really ever have to go through, and how he processes that grief, which then becomes obsession, which then becomes like this kind of absolute desire
Hmm.
for one outcome and one outcome only,
Yeah.
irrespective of what happens to the rest of the world.
Hmm.
Kind of like doing the wrong things for the right reasons is what I would say.
Mm.
Um, you know, Thinking you're absolutely right about something, which is very human of us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And it's good. I do much prefer a book that has got like character development in it. So you see the whys and the hows and the progression of people's either descent into madness or making crazy choices or why they decided to do the thing they're going to do. I like being walked through that, and I don't like just be given this like character and not knowing why they've gotten to that point. I'm very nosy as a person naturally, so this is why I do this as
yeah,
well, because I like knowing about people. But it's the same with books, and I think it's important to have, especially in fiction, these elements of things that probably aren't going to happen in our lifetime, if ever, to make it feel like this thing that you can escape from reality from. But actually, would I do that if that happened to me?
yeah,
So yeah, that's what makes fiction enjoyable. I think is the elements of possibility that you can act out in real
yeah.
life.
Absolutely. I mean, if anybody ever does read this, I mean, there's a few people that read it, but if anybody after this reads
Mm-hmm.
it, one thing I really would like people to take away from that is, what would you do in that situation? Because it really
Mm.
should make you hopefully question, okay, would I make those same choices?
Mm.
Um, how angry would I be? How upset would I be about this situation? What would I
Mm.
do? Um, because that's kind of the point of it, is hopefully making you question a little bit about what you do
Yeah.
in those situations. And
It's fascinating because that you as the author have looked at that situation and gone, well, this is what would be an interesting take on how this main character would go navigate this. Would you, if you had that sort of technology available to you, do you think you would have reacted like that?
see, I ask this question. It goes over and over in my head.
Does it?
Well, it did before I even
Mm-hmm.
like started writing this, because first of all, when I had this idea, it just wouldn't go away. It kept eating
Mm.
away and eating away, and I was kind of going to sleep, and then for the first hour before sleeping, I would be kind of basically 2 or 3 years before, putting a single word on the page, I had written in my head about 75% of this.
Wow.
And that question always was kind of like, does this seem too far-fetched that somebody would go to this length? Would you go to this length for that situation if you were in that situation? Not just of parents, but of anybody that is so significant in your life. And I think also, like, sometimes I think, yeah, I'd like to think that I would, because if they meant that much to me, like, I absolutely would try and go to the ends of the earth to try and rectify something, or even just have a resolution for me, you know, feeling a little bit better about that situation. But then you think at the same time as well, like, you know, justice is there for a reason. The justice system's there for a reason. You know, even if you're wronged in that, you should kind of feel like you should let that go down the right path. And you know, but yeah, I think anybody in the, you know, in the right conditions, or the wrong conditions, but in the right conditions, anybody can do anything like that.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe
not time travel, but probably close to it.
Yeah, yeah. But getting justice in any, you know, in any way, or doing something that is so out of character for somebody else, perhaps, even the mild-mannered person that's never ever had an argument with anybody before and kind of just stays on their own. If you pushed enough,
I
think you know, you probably will be surprised at what people can do. And I think that's part of this story, like, being pushed to the point of not being able to do anything else because there is no police help. They can't do anything about it, and almost being cornered into making a choice. Like, you can either forget about them and try and move on and live your life, or you can fight for them in some way or another. And how are you going to do that? And he chooses to, you know, just casually invent time travel.
Just casually. Why not? Just do it.
Kids are genius. And a psychopath.
Lucky them. Although I don't know if I could cope with being intelligent in that way. I think I'd probably go mad or turn to drugs or something. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? This is just like such a sweeping statement, and I bet it's going to get me into trouble, but I know very, very, very intelligent people, and they either create something incredible or do something incredible, or they fall down the rabbit hole of something destructive because it's too much. Because having a deep understanding of the inner workings of the world is not fun. Like, it's not nice. It's not something I'd wish on anybody.
I imagine it's quite isolating. Somebody that isn't very high functioning in terms of their ability to do things, I imagine it's quite isolating and maddening.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
No, me either. I'm just here frolicking around, just doing stuff, hoping it's going to land.
Yeah. If I can get to 5:30 without having a drink, that's really, you know, that's an achievement. That's my intelligent moment.
What is your drink of choice, I have to ask?
Oh, well, I am a cider drinker now. So I don't know if many people in the US drink cider. Probably not. But
their cider is just apple juice, which is balmy to me. We love a drink in the UK, though.
Yeah.
Everything's booze. So.
Yeah. I like to think that I'm a good drinker. I'm not a great drinker. I don't drink very often anymore. But
what do you mean by good drinker? Do you mean an ability to consume a large volume, or just you're nice and not a dickhead when you drink?
well, both. I mean, I definitely am a good drinker in the respect of I'm just a happy guy.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I'll talk to anybody. We'll have long conversations at the bar. I'm that kind of guy. And at the end of the night, I go, "Oh, I love you. See you later." And then that's just it. And then the next day, you go, "Why do you say that for?" But I'm not a good drinker in the fact that, you know, I probably can't drink for a significant period of time. And after a few drinks, I'm like, way, you know, whereas everyone else is just like, just sit down. Which is why I don't do it very often now.
Yeah, I used to, honestly, I started drinking when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I used to be... Nobody would know that I was drunk until I stood up to go to the toilet. I'd be really quiet, maybe a bit louder, because, I mean, I have to isolate my laughs on this show anyway and turn down the laughter because it is so uncomfortable. My volume increases exponentially. And then my ability to stand in a straight line. Stand in a straight line? Walk in a straight line.
You're just like that.
I'm sober now. I don't drink so much anymore. I can't handle it. I get heartburn. And I get headache and I'm too old. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I partied too hard too young and now I'm just like, no thanks, I'm good. I'll have an Ovaltine.
No, I get that. I'm in bed by like 9 o'clock every night now, and because I'm so tired. But recently, I mean, I haven't been out for a long time. But Boxing Day, we have a tradition. Boxing Day is like we have a massive family, and we've got all of our friends. We all go to the same pub, and we play pool, and we have quizzes and all that kind of stuff. But there's like 30 of us every year.
Wow.
And me and my partner have to take it in turns each year. So this year is my year to be able to have a few drinks because we've got kids, you know, all that kind of responsibility stuff. And this year was my year, and we started at 12 o'clock, and I was still going at 2 a.m, and I've not done that for a long time. Didn't get a hangover at the end of the day. Like the next morning, just got up absolutely fine. Don't know what happened. I don't know what. I'm scared to go out again.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Just in case I get like a double hangover the next time after 1 pint or something.
It's just there lurking, ready to dehydrate your brain.
Yeah, it's literally. It feels like that. It feels like it's just there.
Yeah.
Like every time I go to sleep and I'm thinking about a drink, it's like,
don't do it.
Yeah. Hangover Harry's here.
Did you name it?
Yeah. I'm going to create a book about it.
You should. Do you know what? You could do a PSA picture book for kids to say, this is what happens when you drink. Hangover Harry's going to get you. And it'll be like, not now, Bernard. Did you ever read that? It'll be like, not now, Bernard. And the monster in the garden is actually just a hangover.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. You can have that for free.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't even need credit.
Yeah.
It doesn't go well.
Hey, now it'll be my own version. Like I can read it every time I make that mistake and go, why did you do this? Like, why did you go out? You've seen the book. You've read the book. Yeah.
Give it to your partner and say, if I'm talking about going for a drink, hand this to me.
Yeah.
Maybe flashcards would be better.
I can just imagine I was sitting there now, and then she just is at the window with these flashcards. Hangover Harry.
Like little tiny versions in business card form. She could give it to the local pubs. Be like, if he comes in, give him this card with his pint. All right, this might work.
Actually, do you know what? This could be like a national rollout in the UK.
It'll be like when the Fun Stop campaign for gambling. It'd be hilarious. I can't stop thinking about what it would look like. I'm thinking probably like a flanimal, like Ricky Gervais's Flanimals.
Yes, definitely. I think I'll get my son to draw it, and whatever he chooses is what it is.
That'll be the thing. I'm holding you to that because I'm obsessed with this idea now. We derailed so hard then, and I love it so much. But I also want to make sure that we do talk about your creativity. I suppose that was a bit creative.
Yeah, to a degree.
Yep, I think so. So, who would you say that you write for? Do you write for yourself? Do you write for an audience? Do you write for a specific kind of person? What's your motivation?
So, I have never written anything before. So, up until writing Past Crimes and that, I toyed with the idea of a couple of different things over the years, but never felt confident enough, I suppose, to just start writing. And that's anything. So it was only really because of the fact that I could not get this idea out of my head, like I said, for about 2 years before I started writing it. So initially I just started writing for me. I just thought, well, what's the worst that's going to happen is you're just going to have it on your laptop for another 10 years and you may only write 2 paragraphs or, I don't know, a chapter or whatever. And so, yeah, the initial bit was just for me. I didn't tell anybody about it. Didn't even tell my partner about it. So, because I'm the kind of person that you probably understand this a little bit, having spoken to me now, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm the kind of person that if I'm not confident in something, even if I'm doing it, I'm not going to tell anybody about it, because if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not confident in it, and then I decide it's not good,
Mm-hmm.
then nobody knows about it. Nobody knows it's ever existed, and I don't have to worry about the fact that somebody knows.
I
Okay,
understand. Yeah.
yeah. So for the first, I don't know. I think it must have been the first year. Yeah, it must have been the first year while I was writing this. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell anybody about
Wow.
it, and then I must have been probably. I actually wrote the first full draft of it within 2 years, which I think, for me, given the how crazy my life is
Mm-hmm.
with children and work and stuff like that, to do it in 2 years in your first attempt, I thought was pretty good.
Oh, brilliant.
So it was about after a year, it must have been about halfway through, and that's when I kind of started to tell my partner, I
Mm-hmm.
started to tell my family, and they started to read it. And when they started reading it, and they were saying, "This is actually quite good. This is um, for you. This is quite good." But yeah, uh, like, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to kind of put it out there? You're going to try and get it traditionally published,
Mm-hmm.
or all that? And then as soon as they said that, I was like, oh, well, I wasn't thinking about doing any of that. I was just writing it to see how I was getting on. But
Yeah.
by the end of it, yeah, so it was all for me. It wasn't for anybody else at that point. Once I'd gone past the editing process and putting it out there, because I did send it out to publishers initially, um, for about a year. I think I did that.
Okay.
Um, and then I was thinking, perhaps, because then you've got to start thinking about who is your reader?
Hmm.
Because you're writing this thing that I mean, I would like to read that if
Mm.
I'd like to read past crimes
Mm-hmm.
if I was as a reader.
Yeah. It's the
So for
type of
me,
thing
that,
that you like. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, perfect. It's to a T. And you can picture it as kind of like these visuals, and you think it's great and stuff like that in your own head.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only really when I went out to publishers that I was like, I need to understand, really, is this something that people will pick up on? Is this
Mm.
something that people will read? What's it like compared to what other books would you say are like that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so who's your viewership and stuff like that? And I think where I've probably fell down a little bit, and still to a degree do now, is because there's this element of sci-fi in it. Like, is it a full psychological thriller? Is it
Yeah.
one specific thing or not? Um, and so, yeah, trying to figure that out was a bit difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came to self-publish again, like trying to put it on Amazon, you have to kind of niche yourself into a certain
Yeah.
genre. Um, which I suppose is the only little downside to any book writing kind of releasing, but particularly with Amazon, you really do have to nail it down, because otherwise you won't get anybody interested in it, because they won't know what it is.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it was for me initially. More like, now I've released this and I'm writing more, and I'm got different, like, all of a sudden, just this flow of ideas for different
Yeah.
things, which is really, like, yeah, it's great. I get really kind of excited by these things that just pop into my head now, and I'm like, actually, yeah, I probably could write this if I fleshed it out a bit. So, and now then I'm thinking now, like, I'm currently writing a apocalyptic ish kind of trilogy now. It was just initially one
Oh,
book, but it's a trilogy now,
cool.
because why not?
Just do it.
Wrote one book, could do
You can
three
do. You can
three
do a
in a year.
trilogy.
Yeah, it's no skin off my nose. But yeah, no, so yeah, now it's more a case of, like, okay, if I'm writing this story, and I need to understand genre, I need to
Hmm.
understand, who would read this, what type of people, what type of person would like this, would they like this, is this kind
Hmm.
of, um, is this something that, like, people will read and enjoy, but still for me, because at
Mm.
the end of the day, I still, it's a therapy for me, being able to do something away from my life that is lovely but hectic.
Yeah.
To do something like writing, even journaling. I don't do that, but I can understand just how therapeutic that is to just get your thoughts out.
It's something that's very, very common with writers, is that almost every single episode we pinpoint the fact that it is a form of therapy. And I think therapy, I've said this in a conversation with somebody, I don't know when or what, or I've definitely said this before, that therapy doesn't have to just be like a psychological evaluation and trying to figure out traumas and stuff. Sometimes therapy is just doing something nice for yourself, or being able to have an outlet somewhere. Like, it's important that you have something in your life that will ground you, or at least let you have some self-indulgence, because the way that modern humans live their lives is not healthy in any way. Like, we're all booked and busy for some reason, and it's mental. It's not a healthy or sustainable way of living. And to be able to have some sort of creative outlet, whatever form that is incredibly important. Whether it's that or colouring in a colouring book, or whatever you want to do, is super important. So if you don't have that thing, try and find something. Like, I used to love cutting and sticking stuff like a kid. Potato painting, it's amazing. Do stuff like that. It doesn't matter what it is if it's for you. I think it's interesting hearing you talk about how you're viewing your writing now, since having gone through the process of publishing your work. I know that you said that you still want it to be something that you want to write, but how do you think your writing has changed since you've been trying to consider what a reader might want from you?
It hasn't necessarily changed too much, but I have noticed that. So for Past Crimes, I didn't plan any of it. I just wrote. I knew in my head what I wanted to do, but what's in your head against what ends up on a page it can be vastly different. So I didn't plan any of it. I knew the beginning was this, and this is what I wanted, and roughly the ending. That's what I wanted, and everything else that came out was just, we're going to get there somehow.
Yeah,
I'm not going to plan it. This time around, so when I started writing this second novel, which is unrelated to Past Crimes standalone, I planned it out, and then I started writing it, and then halfway through I was like, well, not halfway through, I was about 10,000 words in, I think. And then I was like, I've written this stuff here, and actually, if I'm a reader, half of this won't make sense because I haven't actually given anything an explanation. You were saying how earlier you kind of like to understand a character or a situation more. Like, why would somebody do this? Why has this happened to the world, for example? All of that kind of stuff. Well, that's the point I got to. So I then planned out a beginning, which was the first, which is now going to be the first one, the middle, which is the book which I was currently writing, and now an ending to this via a full trilogy, which gives you a full picture of the why, like, how did this happen, when's it happening, and then why, and then what is the outcome of all of that. I can't really explain it too much without giving too much away.
No, of course. Yeah. Is it linear?
Yeah, it's linear.
Okay.
It is a linear trilogy, but it's not in a sense. So this is going to just sound stupid and crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway.
I love stupid and crazy.
Yeah, the trilogy is actually, it's a trilogy, but it's not related in terms of the characters that you see in the first book, second book, and third book.
Right.
They're not the same.
Okay.
There's only a tiny through kind of little threads, like mentions of people in the first book to the second book to the third.
Okay.
And the first two are set very real time. The third one is set very far in the future as a result of what's happened in here. So yes, it's a trilogy, but it's also, you could probably read them separately if you really wanted to. And it makes sense to a degree in each.
Okay, interesting. So with the first one, again, if I'm asking too much and you don't want to give too much away, that's absolutely fine. Fine. Because I don't want you to put pressure on yourself, and also it could evolve between now and when it's finished. Yeah. So Would you say that because of the way that you've been writing it, that the first one is treated like a prequel, or is it just further background information to help people understand what is going on in this universe that you've created?
So effectively, everything that I've got a story about in my head,
Mm-hmm.
so anything that I've got lined up that I know that I'm going to write, has to have it has to kind of be like a little bit like past crimes in a way. You like, why would this be a situation?
Mm.
What's caused people to be in this situation? What's caused their life? What's happened in their life to cause them, or to make them feel like they have to have no other option than to do these things that they're doing? Like, what choices would you make? So realistically, in the first book, the main character has big a big problem with, he's made redundant from a massive corporation,
Mm-hmm.
and then he goes down a rabbit hole
Okay.
of, why is this corporation still making loads of money? Why is the CEO making loads? Why is the
Mm.
world so corrupt in that way? And yet I'm here and I've worked so hard all my life. And he finds like-minded people,
Mm-hmm.
and then they conspire to basically reset the world in a way that is fair and grounded for everybody, but gets rid of everybody that is either, in their eyes, corrupt, in their eyes, too rich, in their eyes, too famous, in their eyes, only about themselves. So it's, how did you get to that point of being, yes, you're at a point of desperation,
Mm-hmm.
but would you really do that? And would that be something that could actually happen? And the second book then deals, so that ends.
Mm-hmm.
Second book then deals with the aftermath of that, the real time this is happening.
Fascinating.
And so the first book set in London, second book set in America, in Washington, and then the third book, I haven't decided where it's set yet. But the third book then deals with, like, okay, 100 years ago these events happened.
Mm-hmm.
We've got this peaceful utopia now
Mm-hmm.
as a result of the reset that happened, but something's bubbling underneath, and the main character in that book kind of uncovers some uncomfortable truths about what happened, and how we got there, and is that utopia actually what it seems to be?
I am so excited. If you want beta readers for this, I'm so in. That sounds phenomenal and absolutely something that I would love to read. So fully encourage that. Please make sure that you get them out there in the world because I want to read them.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm currently writing the first one.
Mm-hmm.
um, Now, I've already written 10,000 words for the second one, but I probably will change it.
Yeah.
And these things will change probably a little
Yeah.
bit, but that's the basic premise.
Very
And
exciting.
yeah, do you know, when I'm talking about these things though, like,
What's
I
right?
think you're the only person that I've actually told this to so far.
Oh,
So this is like
is is it an exclusive scoop?
it's like an exclusive.
Oh my gosh! I felt like I
Yeah.
need to have a little hat with a thing in it. I don't know what they are. Playing cards. What do people? What do matchbooks? What did old detectives used to put in their hats?
Oh, I know what you mean. I don't know what it is. I know what you mean.
When you after you had published Past Crimes, did you
Mm.
almost like catch a bug where you were like, all right, I have to put out more books, or was it more that you were more inspired because you were able to finish this thing and you were like, oh, I can write stuff, so
Yeah.
it kind of stopped you from limiting yourself? Like, how did that happen?
The fact that there's, you can't see it, but there is a book here.
It's
That's
just
past
chilling.
crimes. Yeah, it's just there. There it is. But the fact that it's like, that's a physical copy that I can hold. The
Yeah.
fact that I can see. I mean, that's such an achievement for me. For me personally,
Mm.
because going from somewhere where I one, didn't even think that I'd ever write anything,
Mm-hmm.
and two, that I wrote it and decided that I was going to put it out there. That's a huge thing. And while I was writing Past Crimes, or finishing that and starting to release this, that's when
Mm.
all of a sudden these few other ideas have come, and then just out of nowhere, I've got like eight or nine, like, really, not really strong ideas necessarily, but really good thoughts about what my next one would be.
Yeah.
Um, I thought when I released, I mean, I was very naive. I'll be honest. When I did the whole, I'm going to just release this on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
KDP, Kindle. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did zero research as to what you need to do as a self-published author. So I had no following. I had no social media presence because I hadn't been on social media for years. I didn't market my book at all, so I just put it out there and then was like, created all these accounts and was like, "Hey, here's my book," thinking, "Oh yeah, that'll do. People will read it." Um, Obviously, that was not the case. So I had a
Rarely is.
moment where I was like a really kind of crisis confidence moment. I was like, "This is terrible. Like, what I've put something out in the world, and like, one, nobody's currently reading it, but what if they do read it? That's terrifying."
Yeah.
So there was a moment where I was just like, I just need a break from not having to worry about these little things that, and just go with the flow a little bit, promote yourself a bit, see how you can, and then once I got over that kind of panic moment of, oh my god, this is out there, oh my god, people might not read it, oh they might read it, then I was like, okay, look, it's out there, it's there now. If it's a good one for people, great. If people get something out of it, great. Let's just start writing something else and see where we go. And that's where that second one's come from, all that. So yeah, it did create a bit of a kind of a bug, and these ideas started to come quite quickly.
That's cool.
But yeah, I needed a bit of time. I'm not like, so I know some some authors can just write and write.
Churn it out.
Yeah, and it's still the same quality, the same kind of. But I think if I was to try and do that, one, my life wouldn't let me do that. But two, I just think I'd burn out very quickly from it. I need to segment things. I need, to kind of give myself, okay, I'm going to do X amount this week, but I might have a week off and then I'm doing it. And I'm not putting any pressure on myself to release things really quickly and try and, get loads of books released in a certain amount of time. I'm just going to try and focus on the story that I've got. And if it comes out in a year, great. If it comes out in 2 years, better. If I decide I don't want to do that one, that's fine as well. It's not the end of the world, because there's still a book out there. If I do nothing else, I've released a book and I've released a story that I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that story that I've written.
And so you should be. And there are so many people who, I'm myself included, will say that they want to do something and something will get in their way. Like, other than the obviously financial things that get in people's way, is confidence, follow through. Like, I hadn't finished anything major in my life until I was a mature student and I studied psychology, and I achieved my degree at just 30 years old, I think, something like that. I'd never finished anything big in my life, and that showed me that I could finish something, and that allowed me to have the confidence to do more things with my life. I think it does take the success of achieving something, because success looks different to everybody, that having, as you said, this tangible thing that you can hold and share with people is very cool. It's a very cool thing, because a lot of people don't get the opportunity to even do that. So I can imagine that is a huge confidence boost. I'm going to cry when I release my first book. I know it. I'm going to sob. I'm so excited, but I'm also, as you say, terrified people are going to read it. But what if they don't? That's even worse somehow. I don't know. It's so vulnerable.
It is terrifying thinking about it. It's like, it really is that kind of moment of, okay, it's out there. I hope nobody reads this because it's out there. But if they don't read it, then they won't know that it's good or bad. And then they won't tell me it's good or bad. And then I won't know. And then what if I don't, it's all that kind of, you're just constantly like that.
Win.
Yeah, you are. But it's also quite exciting at the same time. Like, that's the beauty of it, is that actually you'll be so proud of what you've written. If you're at a point where you get to say, I'm going to, here you go, that's it, I've hit the button, it's going to be released in 3 days, done. or a week or whatever. And,
Mhm.
that week will be a really kind of nerve-wracking but exciting time. And then when it hits and you've got this physical copy of your book,
Mhm.
something you've written, you can't really describe that feeling.
Yeah.
Especially as people, like somebody, again, that up until this point, this is the first effort for
Mhm.
me. And likewise with your first effort,
Mhm.
you know, it's a euphoric feeling having something that something of your own work in
Mhm.
your own hands and uh, out there. One of my friends came around the other day. I have to tell you this just because we're talking about it,
Yeah.
and um, they've been saying for months and months, "Oh, I've got the Kindle version of your book. I just haven't got around to reading it."
Mhm.
I don't think they realised that I had the paperback version out.
Mhm.
So we've come around, had a couple of drinks, got a bit of a laugh, and then on my shelf, like in my kitchen, I've got
Yeah.
a copy of it.
Mhm.
And he just turned to me and he was like, "Wait, is that your book? That's your actual book?" And then he picked it up. And this is like my best mate. I've known him for
Yeah.
since I was 11 years old or 10 years
Aw.
old. We've been best mates for that long.
Mhm.
Um, and he doesn't get emotional, and he got quite emotional, and I was like, and he gave me a massive hug, and he was like, "I'm well proud of you, mate." And I
That's
was
so
just like, "Oh,
nice.
and yeah," and it's that kind of moment though. It's those
Oh.
little moments where you're like,
Mm.
"Yeah, yeah, no, thanks, man." Like that, you don't understand how much that actually means because like
Mm.
that to me is how it feels having that in my hand. Like I'm really
Yeah.
proud of myself for that.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. I'm so pleased. So, having released Past Crimes, and I do urge everybody who is interested in like thrillery type things with a touch of like unrealism rooted in trauma and stuff like that, it's a very very good book. And the fact that it's your first attempt at like writing a book is phenomenal to me. It doesn't come across like that at all. It's very well written, exciting story. 10 out of 10, recommend.
Thank you.
You talked about your difficulties with like not doing research before you published it, and then you were
Yeah,
like, why are people reading my book? Which is what a lot of writers do. In fact, a huge amount of writers will do that, and then they'll wonder why nobody wants it. It's because it's a very very saturated market. As I said earlier, everybody's writing a novel. There are over 1 million authors on Kindle Direct Publishing alone. That's not including people who have published outside of Amazon. So is there anything that you've learned through doing that process that you're going to do differently in terms of the sort of running up to the release or the release of another book?
yeah, for sure. I mean, for a starter, I mean, I've already started to build, my social media
Mm-hmm.
up. I mean, I'm still very far behind most people, but I'm getting there. I'm
Yeah.
creating that. I'm still trying to engage as much as possible with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a starting point. I can start to, when I'm ready, promote uh, or give kind of little teasers of things as I'm
Mm-hmm.
going, which hopefully gains a bit of traction.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I'd say to anybody that is looking or is writing a book currently that's never done any of that before, don't be me. Um, do your research. Social media is, whether you like it or not,
Mm-hmm.
social media is a huge thing for authors,
Yeah.
and it can be such a great creative space as well,
Mm-hmm.
where you can kind of meet like-minded people, but also trying to get your readership and some kind of people that are interested in your work. Social media is huge.
Yeah.
So that would be a big thing that I think anybody that's doing reading a book, writing a book, sorry, needs to kind of look at. Just do your research and really try and start promoting yourself and
Mm-hmm.
get yourself a little bit of a following beforehand, especially if you're self-publishing.
Mm-hmm.
What I would, I mean, doing differently. Yeah, I mean, I'm already halfway there with the fact that I've got social media accounts,
Mm-hmm.
that I've got Amazon. I will set a release date rather than just chucking it on there willy
Interesting.
nilly,
Okay.
and put something in there so then I can actually spend time to promote what the next book that
Mm-hmm.
comes out. hopefully get some pre-orders on it, that kind of stuff, generate some buzz. Hopefully we'll be able to do a few more things locally as well. I know that's not far-reaching necessarily, but since releasing Past Crimes and since going on this journey of trying to market it, again, I've got book signing coming up in my local bookstore.
That's exciting.
Yeah, mad. It's crazy, actually. Yeah, so they're going to have the book in their store for a few months, see how it goes, but also as part of that you do book signing and that, which I've never done before, so that's amazing. But
Very cool.
building those connections locally is good for me, because hopefully I can, if it goes well with Past Crimes in there, then the next one hopefully they'll pick up as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of stuff really. That's what I'm doing differently. I'm also writing it differently. Like I said before, I'm planning this out a bit more. Because I feel like a bit more structure, maybe be less wordy.
Okay.
A bit more to the point as well on certain parts of the books would be beneficial. I'm going to try and grow my TikTok.
Oh, go on.
I did think about, I did try and start doing like random page readouts and stuff like that. If you chuck a page number in the comments, I'll read I'll screenshot this page and do a readout for you, so you get a kind of try before. Yeah, it was all right, but I've only got 68 followers, so it's great for me to
you just need one more.
Yeah. Well, I did, and then they left, and now I'm on 68. So yeah, the story of my life, that is. But yeah, so trying to do that, and like, it's, if I had more, I suppose if I had more people that were interested in this, because I spent the time to do it and do my own research, then these kind of things might be a bit more get a bit more take up on these things. I don't know. I'm trying to think of different things, but marketing's not it's not my bag.
Yeah, it isn't for a lot of writers, and that's something that I didn't know and now know, and I hope that all writers who are thinking of self-publishing, I have not self-published, but I've talked to enough people to pick up on some trends. One of them is, don't pretend like you can just write a book and put it out there and people will read it, because that is not the case. You have to have some other skills as well, or fall into the right category at the right time, right place, right time, or know the right people, because it is such a, as I said, probably 4 times today, an oversaturated market, and you have to stand out in some way. You have to. Otherwise, nobody's going to see you. It's just little things like, if you have the free version of social media, especially with things like Twitter, unfortunately, I've seen a direct impact on my analytics where I've not paid for it and when I've paid for it, which is ridiculous, but it needs must. And I need to be seen so that these authors that I'm talking to, such as yourself, can also be seen. It's not for me, it's for them. And if I can use this platform that I'm creating to help people like yourself even just get a little bit of step up, just even putting your name in front of people becomes more familiar and then becomes trusted as a source for something to read, that's so important. So consistency is definitely one of the things. I'm not a very consistent person. I just go, let me just throw up a picture of my face really up close and tell people that they're a little shit. Things like that, that's just my bag. But I can't plan stuff, which is going to make it really hard for me if I'm going to market my own book. Because you have to show up consistently all the time. You have to be posting every single day because not everybody's going to see it. But if you don't do those things, then you're not going to be seen. If you do those things, it's exhausting. It's exhausting and difficult. So try and find a balance, but also be mindful of the fact this is a message to other people because you're nodding along, because I know you already know.
I'm well aware.
Yeah, and it's
living it.
It's honestly, it's such a drain, but it's worth it because you deserve to give yourself the best chance that you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more with that. And things like what you're doing, I think, is just a fantastic platform for any self-published author, whether they've done, released 10 books, whether they've just released one, whether they've released 3, it's such a great way to get yourself out there. And I think it's fantastic what you're doing, really.
Thank you.
So, I commend you for that completely.
Thank you. It's the joy of my heart, and as I said, but I don't know if it was before we started recording or not, but I would not do this for myself. When it comes to me writing my book, I'm going to be like, it's in the background, you can see it. Hopefully it won't fall over.
What do you mean?
I said hopefully. The only times that I've ever put books up, like people's books who I'm talking to, they've always fallen down. I need to get a stand. I think that's what it's telling me, is that I need an actual stand rather than just leaning it against another book, because that doesn't work.
This right here.
Yes.
That's my marketing campaign basically for Past Crimes. That's what's happened to my marketing. It's not quite fallen over completely. It's not quite seen. It's just half seen. It's that. That's it.
It's kind of funny though, because it's behind the hello sign, so it's like you're going, "Hello, I'm John Jacob Dawson. I have a book. I have a book behind me."
Hello, I'm John Jacob Dawson. It's like that, yeah. Like
but it's perfect.
Troy McClure from like The Simpsons. I'm John Jacob Dawson. You may have seen me from other random podcasts and maybe Past Crimes.
We'll use that as a trailer. Oh God. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you again for being here. And before I let you leave, please could you let our listeners know where to find you and your work? Not your personal address, just like online and stuff.
I'm glad you clarified that, because
just making sure.
I was going to get my passport out. I'm on most social media. I'm on Twitter at JJDauthor87. I'm on Facebook, which is just John Jacob Dawson. Instagram, John Jacob Dawson. Blue Sky. I don't know the one on Blue Sky, but if you search John Jacob Dawson, I'm sure I'll pop up. I'm also on Threads now as well, which is quite a new one for me. Which again I think is just John Jacob Dawson as well. Cool. Don't have a website because that's a lot of effort and I'm poor. And you can find my books on Amazon currently via paperback or via Kindle.
Great. I will put the links for those in the description of the episode. So I'll also put the link to your author feature. So that will include any links that people need to get to your social media, and also the link to buy Past Crimes as well, which I strongly recommend that you do because it's a very good book. But yeah, thank you again. And this has been great.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.